We are back with When I'm Not Podcasting, and I want to go and talk about dating again. A couple different stories I thought that were really interesting about how rude you are on dating apps without realizing it. So, Lifehacker puts a story out about this, and they say that with every dating app's direct messages is a delicate dance. You want to be forward without coming on too strong. Play it cool without losing someone's interest, and be flirty without scaring someone off. Well, there have been screenshots of people botching the dance, teasing that's simply an offensive pickup line straight from 1995, and of course, incel behavior. So the question is, how can you message with your match without making the other person regret swiping right on you? And they talk about the common mistakes that you might be making in the DMs and what you could do instead to get sparks flying. One is giving one-word answers. Well, I think women do that a lot. Okay, sure, cool. I know guys do the same thing, that we don't put much effort, because also the reason why one-word answers suck is because you're also texting. You're not talking on the phone. Because if you're going to text and you feel like you're going to just be able to go and text your way through and get an emotional attachment with somebody that you're going to date and hopefully get into a relationship with, it's going to be difficult. So trying to give the offer that lifehacker.com says that give one-word answers, well, that's just for text. But, I mean, if you're not getting one-word answers yourself, you're probably not getting anything from the person you're talking to, because they might be just giving answers to somebody else and not paying attention to you. If they're not willing to go ahead and take a question of yours and then just try to go ahead and be thoughtful and try to go ahead and, express an answer, that's a little more forethought. Second, asking way too personal questions. So asking the questions about, do you have siblings? How's your relationship with your father? What are you doing to repair it? Yeah. We don't need you to ask that kind of stuff. Honestly, don't even ask about that until later. Don't even ask about it on the first date. That can all wait. And that everybody has their own ways of doing it. Because for me, whenever I did it in the first place, it's probably not the best way to go, but I'm going to just tell you, I always analyze. Because for me, I want to know how the person ticks. I want to know if they're actually going to be attracted to me, or if they're interested in, what I'm asking about when it comes to what they're like as a person, what they are interested in terms of, how do they react to things? How do they respond to certain things? Because I prefer those answers, because I really want to know what that is over favorite color, favorite movie, favorite pastime, places you've gone to travel. Part of that's fine. Sure, you can do it. But it is like the run-of-the-mill questions that every girl might get on a date, or every guy might get on a date. So change it up. That's why I'm talking about analyzing. Now, people don't like to be analyzed, and that's the part I get. But see, I do the analyzing, even though it might be to a fault, is because I don't want to waste time on a date. If I'm going to say, okay, I've done this before where if I wanted to piss a girl off, I said, listen, I'm the one that's paying for time to be with you with this dinner. That didn't work well, but that was because I was pissed. Anyways, if you want to cut to the bullshit, then do what I do, where I will go ahead and find out about what they think about things and how they react to certain things, because I want to know what they're like, and I want to know if they're going to be like-minded like me. But I'm also not going to go through all these extra dates to get to it, right? Because that's the other part I took. Now, I have not been the best at all this, because I have also taken advice from a lot of different ways. And, it's not necessarily the best thing, okay? I get it. When we talk about these kind of things, I understand where people don't really want to believe in what I've gone through. Listen, I listened to Tom Likas about 10 years ago when he was on the radio here, when I could listen to him. And he had numbers of rules, the tenets of Likas 101. Very quickly, never spend more than $40 on a date, because, expensive dinners, pricey gifts, elaborate flowers, and the like do not increase the chances of sex. Because the whole idea is that you want to be in a girl's pants within the third date. That was the reason of Likas 101. Second 3 strikes rule: if she doesn't put out by the third date, dump her. Always use a condom. No single mothers. Avoid groups, because they make sure that no sex happens. No coworkers, because you just don't want to shit where you eat. Cell phones, if a female answers a cell phone call or responds to text messages in the middle of dinner, that a male should immediately get up and leave. Pretty much it. So that rule probably doesn't apply now because people always look at their phones anyway. You can't really do much about that now. Don't become Poindexter. That you don't want to be the guy that is making all this money and doing so well for yourself, only to have somebody somebody you're going to be supporting off of you or feeding off your trough. No crazy. So anybody who's got any mental issues, no virgins, he says. Avoid relationships, especially up to age 25. Women are dream killers, he says. Women stifle a man's career potential. And Tom Likas would explain he had to divorce and end relationships because women wanted to settle down to build a nest to raise kids, to place family above career. And their decision to settle down stifles his own career. And radio, each career move means moving to a new city, to new markets. So that was his idea. Now, back to where I'm coming from here about being rude. The other part is negging, which also, I have heard the whole story about backhanded compliments. Well, I don't know how many people tell you this, but I think you're beautiful, right? Things like that. Negging instead of teasing. So in the Lifehacker article, they're saying that if you're uncertain about how your teasing is being received, err on the side of caution. Now, here's the problem. I mean, you want to feel like you're not completely nice, or you're not simping to a girl. And girls, you want to make sure that you don't have a guy that's just completely just falling all over you. Like, you want a guy who's real. Because if you let a nice guy be way too nice, you can just tell he's just falling all over you and fawning for you and just completely, it's like you could step all over him. You don't want a guy like that because he could very well, first of all, you might get tired of him and you might get bored with him very immediately, or the person could be, subliminally manipulative. Because once he has you into the grasp, into the trap of the nice guy, then the guy could absolutely be manipulative and say, hey, look at all this stuff done for you. Why would you go and leave me? Why would you treat me this way? And then you might get suckered in. You want to watch out with that. Overshadowing with compliments. They're talking about the fact that a compliment here and there is flirting 101, but if you can't hold the conversation without weaving a compliment into every message, consider scaling it back. Don't lay it on too thick. Look, I have this problem because I overshower compliments. I used to do it a lot. Because the one thing with me is that I would always go ahead and date girls that were not perfect 10s. I decided to go after women that were of different size, different shape, because I like the girl a little bit thicker. And that might be the ones that would be a little more approachable than I thought. I know it's not a great way to think about it, but I'm being honest with you. Being honest with you, you're king of podcasts. So I would do that. And then I wanted to make sure to go and build that girl up, build her self-esteem, self-confidence, if there's any that's lacking. And I would think, well, maybe if I go ahead and build her up to make her feel as beautiful as I look at her, then she'll love me. She'll be with me, and that's it. But that never worked either. So the compliments thing doesn't work either. It's probably true about that. Acting entitled. They also say taking yourself too seriously. The dating app profile should not be a job interview. Describe yourself as honest, entrepreneurial, and ambitious. And you'll just see boring, planner, bleh. Girls will see that. So profiles, if you're trying to be doing something super casual, best to communicate that right off the bat. Then sending unrequested pics. Well, we know that's just, it doesn't work. Asking for someone's numbers too soon. Well, what are you going to do? These things, you don't even get phone numbers anymore. Here's my DM for my Instagram. Here's my Snap. Things like that. And, even with that, you just take it by as you want. If you got to go through this kind of thing, it doesn't really work well. Also, don't use impersonal pickup lines. They say in oversharing. And also, trying to avoid small talk. And if you're doing a profile, about listing specific requirements, and that you could keep an internal checklist for your perfect match, but keep it to yourself. That's the kind of ideas we're talking about. Now, the third date rule, I want to get back to that, because there was a story from Kayla Kibb over at InsideHook.com. And I love when she writes stories about this, because she's always talking about that. That 3 dates is significant. According to dating folklore, the third date means sex. Yes, in our current era of dating apps, one night stands, and hookup culture, the idea of a third date is still synonymous almost with sex. But then we also know where some girls, especially I know that I dated, they would really spread out the time between dates, which didn't help either. And I think that's the other thing that's got to be considered is that if you're able to date somebody, if you can't get that person to meet with you 3 times within like the first, say 2 weeks to a month, then they might not have time for you. And second, they might be stalling for sex or not want to be there for sex, try to avoid it or pull back as much as they can to not look prudish or not look like a slut or a whore. So Caleb mentions how the 3-date rule seems to maintain a level of cultural recognition today. It tends to recall a pre-internet era of courtship where dates were arranged on answering machines instead of dating apps, blind dating, speed dating, or whatever he was going to call instead of waiting for a text. Now she asks about if the third date rule is making a comeback, but it was ever a thing to begin with. She says she's not strictly opposed to the idea of slowing down physically, nor entirely skeptical of the benefits doing so may have on the longevity of a burgeoning relationship. But she's curious about how, when, and why lucky number 3 got to be the magic sex date. So she talks about that, goes through a couple different things about historically how the 3-date rule has come to be, which you can read about in the link that I put up on the website. Or wherever you find this show, subscribe to it on Amazon, Spotify, Apple, Google, all those places. And there was a book that she refers to called The Rules of Seduction that talk about how you should hold back and also the fact that to not worry about the third date having sex because if you play your cards right, you have sex with him every night for the rest of your night when you're actually married. Well, see, that's the other problem is that you want to have a very I would like to think that if you're going to be before you're married, that you want to be very sexually active with your person, with your partner. I know that's not the thought process when it comes to those that are waiting to get married to have sex. That is still a thing, and I can respect those that want to do that. But if you're waiting not to go ahead and actually penetrate, and you can do everything else leading up to it. That I think would be okay. But either which way, what you have to keep in mind is that with dating these days, the sooner you get out of the wall or the protective barrier that a woman or a man will have with the dating apps, and then you can move on to the actual physical dating. First of all, physical dating is the way to go if you want to date. Because dating apps are not providing what is effective anymore. I know because I stopped using them altogether. Plus, the quality of people on the dating apps now have gone to shit. Like, I still remember a couple of girls that were back in my backseat when I was doing an Uber ride for them to a concert. And they were going through Hinge, looking at guys on the app and just swiping away. And just commenting. So it was more just a game for these young ladies than it was actually something serious. So I don't think anybody takes themselves enough serious on there except for maybe to hook up. And then even then, it's a crapshoot. Physical dating still is probably the best way. And I think the dating apps now and online dating right now is showing its true colors. And I think we're going to just see more and more people decide not to date anymore through that way. But also more guys and gals giving up on dating because it's just the way it is now. It's just too toxic. It's not even toxic relations. Even before you get to it, just the way people handle themselves dating, it's too toxic. That's why I haven't dated in a long time. I think about it right now. Usually in the holidays, I talked about cuffing season here on the program. And for a while, I haven't dated anyone seriously where I dated somebody more than a couple dates, more than 3 or 4 dates in 10 years, 9 years. And that's it. Like I've gone out on a date here and there, first dates, but nothing serious. Because I would just try to go ahead and just to see what would happen. But I stopped chasing a long time ago. I stopped chasing over a decade ago. I just stopped. And honestly, what really made me stop altogether was when Craigslist lost their dating spot. Like, honestly, Craigslist was very effective for dating for me. I did really well with that. And then it just died off. And you know what? It's never been the same. I don't know. Nobody else replaced them. That's too bad. Maybe there's a time where Craigslist can bring it back. But I guess they're not going to. They're not relevant anymore. There are so many other websites you go to that are more important than Craigslist. You know, that's just what happened. I'm going to leave it there. And I'll talk to you next time.